Hello, people of the internet. I'm the Source Code Gamer, and welcome back to the GamerGate uh, series. Um, if you are new to the series, go watch the first one because I explain it a lot better and I wasn't as tired. So, from what I've read so far, they haven't really explained what GamerGate is, at least not well enough that I'd understand it properly. But hopefully the forum I found will be able to explain it a little bit better. I was a lot closer to the end of this than I thought it was, but I didn't want to go over an hour for a video, so let's just start. Role of misogyny and anti-feminism. A number of commentators have argued that the Gamergate movement had the potential to raise important issues in gaming journalism, but that the wave of misogynistic harassment and abuse associated with the hashtag had poisoned the well, making it impossible to separate honest criticism from sexist trolling. Attacks on women. Quinn said the campaign reopened well-meaning people who cared about ethics and transparency into a pre-existing hate mob. In Pace magazine, Garrett Walton suggested that any concerns about ethics in journalism were merely a cover for attacking women, even if some sincerely believed otherwise. Amanda Marcotte, in an article for the Daily Beast, described the controversy as arising from the comments of a vindictive ex-boyfriend, stating it was pure misogyny to use online harassment tropes against Quinn and at the ethics violation. Discussion is merely a desperate attempt to justify their harassment. Marcotte noted that the allegation of Quinn having sex with for a favorable review of her game was wrong and accused the video game world of being thick with misogynists who are aching to swarm on any random woman held up for them to hate no matter what the pretext. She also made comparisons to the initial outrage against Sarkeesian's video series. Harassment sent to a woman who made a negative review of a Teen Titans cover and to a community manager for the Mighty Number 9 video game because she drew a feminine Mega Man and virtual rapes committed against women players, avatars in Grand Theft Auto and DayZ. Okay, well, Mega Man was a very feminist looking person. It's a boy. It's uh, a young boy. Of course, that it's going to look a little bit feminine compared to a man that would do it. Mighty Number 9, I have no clue what that is. Sorry, I've never actually done that. I'm not going to actually stop my video just to figure out what it was. Teen Titans, I can understand some criticism towards it. I prefer the original Teen Titans to the Teen Titans Go. And the virtual rapes in GTA 5 and DayZ. I don't see how you'd do it in GTA 5 in the first place. In DayZ, everyone's absolutely insanely a jerk. Unless you're like Frankie or Capone or some of the heroes types on that game. Writing in the New Yorker, Simon Parkins said, in Quinn's case, the fact that she was the subject of the text rather than the friend who wrote about her game reveals the true nature of much of the criticism, a pretense to make further harassment of women in the industry permissible. T.C. Sodic, a news editor of The Verge, wrote an editorial urging people to stop supporting Gamergate, detailing various issues he perceived in the movement, including using the search for ethics as a jurisdiction for the harassment campaign. Built credibility in their claims, convincing apolitical gamers that a problem existed and its embrace of anti-feminist, conservative journalists and commentators. He described the movement as a bubbling witch hunt that continues to raise more questions than it answers because it didn't have any useful questions to ask in the first place, knowing that its origin was attacks on Zoe Quinn concerning her personal life. Well, that's actually quite smart. Um, TC Sonic. I'm actually going to use your article as my counter to the pro GamerGate article. Um, there we go. Now we got a second one. I'm going to be reading his second due to the fact that it allows a what is pro and what is con. You always look at the pros first because if the cons outweigh it, it sort of nullifies them. The role of journalist. Yeah, Kurzner, writing for MetalEater.com, criticized some gaming journalists for making unprofessional, anti-intellectual, and dehumanizing generalizations about those who supported Gamergate, and that it had been unfair to paint all of its supporters as motivated by ill will rather than legitimate concern for the state of games journalism. She also urged the gaming community to challenge and reject the small subgroups of gamers whose actions had stigmatized the community, stating that the problems of bigotry in the community were real. In a subsequent piece on Metal Eater, Gunzer remarked that the various issues plaguing the Gamergate debates were pressured by external forces. She stated that after she had an argument with Milo Yiannopoulos of Breitbart, where she was critical of his coverage of the controversy, she was harassed by Gamergate supporters on Twitter and anonymous message boards. Gunzer remarked that Yiannopoulos was one of many external voices to the debate who she felt was using Gamergate as a proxy for their authorities on the subject, and asked why gamers were so angry and concerned about opinions of Leigh Alexander and Edith Sarkeesian, Milo Yiannopoulos, other writers, and even herself, while stating gamers were just opposed to change for the sake of change. She added that external forces with other agendas were changing the discussion and keeping moderate voices silent. Ryan Cooper of The Week criticized Yiannopoulos' involvement in the movement, alleging Yiannopoulos had little but sneering contempt for gamers beforehand. According to Eric Kane, writing at Forbes.com, the Gamerscape movement is driven by a backlash against social criticism of video games. Because many readers don't want to be told what's good or bad about the game's social politics, they just want to hear about the game itself. He also explains that many people are upset that the video game space has been so heavily politicized with left-leaning, feminist-driven slants. However, Kane wants gamers to be distrustful of right-wing non-gamers suddenly swooping into the video game scene with inflammatory anti-feminist headlines. Writing in Overland, Braden Kayoff described the rise of social criticism in video gaming as part of the maturation of the art form and a natural consequence of video games becoming accepted as a force in mainstream culture. Essentially, video game critics today are fighting the same discursive battles other low art forms fought half a century ago. He wrote there is much experimentation and energy and hope and disruption, and it is all very exciting. Kyle Moody, professor of communications media at Fitchburg State University, said the increasing cultural criticism of video games has helped the industry to reach a higher artistic discussion, and that those opposed to discussions of class, sexuality, and race instead want the games to remain toys. Alyssa Rosenberg of the Washington Post considers Gamergate to be part of a larger culture war that has been occurring for the last decade, spurred by the ease of interaction between creators and consumers, and which begs the question of whether culture is changing fast enough and whether change means chucking out old ideas, storytelling tropes, and character types. So, please, in an interview with NPR's Marketplace, voice actress Jennifer Hale called out on the gaming community to prove the self-policing of its small and vicious friends, and said they are still race and gender barriers within the industry. Let's remove gender from casting everywhere we can and play around with it. Let's do the same with race. Let's go on and create the next level. We can't do that right now. She also noted that friends had advised her not to do the interview. Writing for Vox, Todd Vanderwerf wrote that the movement's actually interesting concerns were being warped and drowned out by an army of trolls spewing bile often at women. Sarah Kaplan of the Washington Post noted that sexism became the crux of the Gamergate controversy. Perception of misogyny and inclusiveness. Author and scholar Christina Hoff Sommers disagreed with the criticism leveled at gamers in a video she released through the American Enterprise Institute. She stated the gamers are dealing with a new army of critics who ignore the fact that gaming has become inclusive. All the data we have suggests that millennial males, these are people born and raised in video game nation, are far less prone to these prejudices than previous generations. If you love games, they don't really care about your age, your race, your ethnicity, your gender, your sexual preferences. They just want a game. My suggestion to these critics: stand down. Willem Ondro, however, noted in Le Monde that the question is not whether games make a game sexist, but whether they express and maintain a negative portrayal of women already presented and unconsciously accepted. No, they don't. We often view women as strong, independent, able to do everything a man can do, or better. Look at Mass Effect. You have a choice of a male and female character. The male character does the exact same thing that the female character does, except the female character is more of a, well, I would say a bad word, but she's kind of stuck up a little bit, in my opinion. But that's just me. I'm not sure which Mass Effect I'm talking about though. Probably Mass Effect 3. Writing in the Pacific Standard, Noah Bur- Burlatsky argued that the misogynist harassment targeting Quinn and Sarkeesian should be viewed not as an issue specific to the gaming community, but as evidence that misogyny is pervasive pervasive in American culture. Gamers need to address misogyny in gaming, but that is not because gamers are particularly broken or awful. It's because misogyny is a problem everywhere, and everyone needs to confront it in their own communities. Gamers aren't different than anyone else in that regard. It's like it lets the rest of us off the hook too easily to pretend that they are. Legitimacy of Gamergate's concerns. Writing in the time, Leigh Alexander, editor at large of Gamma Sutra, described the campaign as deeply sincere but based on bizarre conspiracy theories, saying that there is nothing unethical or improper about journalists being friends and acquaintances of those they cover. Surely these campaigners understand that no mean reporting on anything takes place without the trust and often friendship of people on the inside. Quinn herself agreed that a discussion on journalism ethics was needed and suggested that all those instead use the game ethics hashtag to discuss the matter without the baggage of misogyny and harassment that had attached to Gamergate. Fox writer Todd Van Wolf highlighted an essay written by game developer David Hill, which explained that he believed Gamergate made good points, but targeted the wrong people. Hill stated the gaming journalist hated both the nepotism and how the industry, particularly AAA publishers, treat video game journalism simply as marketing. He wrote, "We want to approach these works of art as works of art and not just as the next success or flop. But that can't happen on any large scale because of that corruption. Because of the commercialism of it all." He further added that the Gamergate movement should not have focused on independent developers like Quinn, particularly attacking her sex life, and Fish to try and enact a change in games journalism, describing them as frankly powerless in games industry, but rather that it should have targeted advertising by AAA companies. Video game journalist Ryan Smith characterized journalism as a weird insider culture. Combined with a generally pugnacious attitude of online arguments, he stated this results in journalists conflating the noise of angry commenters with their large audience. He contended furthermore that the video games press in particular exists in an incredibly airtight bubble, which is rarely pierced by professional journalism. There are no ombudsmen or real media critics that you see in sports and politics, and even other entertainment journalism fields. He went on to describe a profession in which dissent and differing opinion is met with hostility. This environment, he concluded, was a result of networking and the comfort of soft consensus trumping honest conversation and healthy debate. Alex Goldman the media wrote Alex Goldman on the media wrote that he recognized legitimate complaints in Gamergate concerning the relationship between video game industry and journalists, and that there is diversity within the gamer community, but noted that the movement's decisions to focus on female indie developers and its involvement in harassment had caused it to lose mainstream credibility. If you see yourself as a block or of people who call themselves gamers, to outsiders you are only as good as your worst representatives. in the past month have shown those representatives to be racist, homophobic, misogynist, and threatening. Coleman said, if you want to be seen as monolith, publicly shame the bad actors in your cohort. If you want to be seen as individuals, well, stop calling yourself gamers. Come up with some other means of self-identification. Because as of right now, the most people standing behind the mantle of gaming have spoiled it for all of you. I prefer to call myself a gamer because I see only the good side of the gaming community. If I see the bad side, that's not a gamer, that's just a jerk that has the wrong label. Political consultant Al Bukhari stated that Gamergate was the reaction of non-political gamers to an increasingly politicized pastime that had been overtaken by moral crusaders. He wrote, for years, politicized games journalists have harbored a simmering mix of contempt and fear of the current gaming audience, and that this attitude had led to misunderstandings of the going-ons by the press. He stated that the gamers involved in Gamergate are not exclusionary, but merely opposed to ideology and cultural homogeny, and that journalists' own biases explain the lack of pro-Gamergate coverage. He concluded that holding up the extremes is a great way to avoid dialogue. It's politics, not in the sense of liberals versus conservatives, but in the more fundamental sense of my side versus your side. Ryan Cooper of The Week highlighted on analysis written by writer John Stone, saying, while various patterns of behavior coalesce around the hashtag Gamergate, protein nature resists attempts toward summary and narrative. It readjusts and reinvents itself in response to attempts to disarm and disperse its noxious, subsuming disaffected voices in an act of continual regeneration, cycling through targets, pretexts, manifestos, and moralism. Several gaming press sites changed their disclosure and conflict of interest policies as a result of the controversy. Polygon now requires its writers to disclose contributions via Patreon, while Kotaku, who wholly prohibits its staff from supporting any game developers through the website. Defy Media adopted a new and stricter journalistic and ethical standards policies for all its subsidiaries, such as the Escapist, Gamefront, and Destructoid. Updated their policies after Gearbox software developer Anthony Birch pointed out his personal connection with the Destructoid staff over Twitter. Alright, so that's pretty much everything that's non either side. Now I'm going to be doing two different sides. I will be mentioning the website, theescapistmagazine.com on Gamersgate, run by Agiac. Will be on the side of Pro, and TC Sonic on behalf of The Verge will be on Stopping Gamergate, the anti-Gamergate side. Now, I don't want to do these in separate videos, so I'm going to do them in one swell swoop. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. I will only be reading the first section. I will not be clicking the links and going through each and every single one of them. And I will not be reading anyone that's not the original author. Of course, these aren't that long, so it should only take my normal hour. TC Sodex will be a lot longer, but it will be easier to read because he's a professional journalist. Now, on behalf of the Pro, let's read Ajax. Disclaimer: GamerGate has not, and never will endorse the harassment or abuse of anyone for any reason. Everyone should call out anyone who attacks, harasses, or abuses anyone. What does GamerGate want? In a phrase, ethical standards and practices in the gaming journalism industry. GamerGate desires straightforward, honest coverage of the industry, such that anyone who can read these outlets with the basic expectation that they will be told the truth. In an ideal world, every gaming outlet would adopt the New York Times standards and ethics policies, but that is an unrealistic goal in the world of internet media. As such, we must contend with ethical policies that fit within the limitations. The Escapist, a media site of some repute, has adopted such standards. To put it in layman's terms, truth and fact must be treated with the respect they deserve. This means, at a minimum, opinions are not to be stated as universal truths. Hearsay is not to be reported as factual without corroborating evidence. Assumptions and speculation are not to be reported as fact. Intentionally misleading or inflammatory wording is not ever to be used in headlines or elsewhere. When in doubt, stick only to the information that would hold up under examination in a court of law. Editorials and other opinion pieces ought to be kept separate from news pieces. Bias and opinion will always color a writer's work, but they should strive for as much objectivity as reasonably possible in the news. If they wish to share their opinion on the piece, something that should be encouraged, it should be done in a distinct space. There's nothing wrong with the news article, and I think it's great, terrible, stupid, etc. Click this link to find out why, or some variation thereof is only within the article proper that opinions ought to be avoided. All journalists must be required to behave professionally within the public space. This includes, but is by no means limited to, no irrational, emotionally driven rants, no insults, threats, or any of the other sort of childishness. Engage the audience calmly, reasonably, and without rancor, or do not engage them all. Do not treat one's audience as an enemy. Journalists must strive to be objective. No human can truly impartial, but journalists must strive to the best of their ability to be external bias and to inform their readers when they cannot. Put simply, this means they must, at minimum, reduce themselves from reporting news regarding subjects that they have responsible or financial link to, disclose any personal or financial connections to the subjects they are giving opinions on, editorials, arts, reviews, etc. Engage in honest and fair coverage. Consistency and the interest of relevance to the audience must be deciding factor in the decision to run a story. Gamergate simply wants gaming media websites to adopt some variation on these policies, much like the Escapist has, and actively work to adhere to them. Nothing more and nothing less. Why is it happening? Over the last 5 years, gaming media has grown increasingly politicized, all with the same political stance and agenda. It has become almost unheard of for a gaming news piece to not include at least a passing comment about a game being retrograde for not matching this stance, or for a game to be praised to the moon because it reflects the right politics. Many gamers are sick of it. Add on to this the claims of corruption or censorship, of blacklisting, and of careers ruined, and these gamers have become incensed. Gamers have been lied to, belittled, shamed, stifled, and held in contempt by the industry they created and continue to drive. Developers have been attacked, silenced, belittled, and forced to compromise their art by the same industry. It has to stop Gamergate is a grassroots movement by the gaming community to hold the press accountable for their actions and to demand better. Okay, well, that is a lot of corruption in the industry, in my opinion. One that's always criticized is EA because they make a game and they don't finish the game. They release updates in the form of DLC, but this DLC isn't always free. It's something you have to pay for, and often paying for the DLC costs a lot more than the game was originally. Look at Sims 3 when they released it. They released the original game for $60, then they released DLC for $20 each, and some add-on DLC for $10 each. All combined, it was over $400 without the game for just DLC. Nowadays, you can get it for about 100, but still, that's extreme amount of just plain, I want money, give me lots of money, because they didn't want to improve a game that and sell a million more copies. Where did it come from? Gamergate is a recent wide-ranging controversy that began in late August 2014 as a direct result of seemingly corrupt and wildly unprofessional behavior of the gaming press. On August 16th, that jerk, ex-boyfriend of developer Zoe Quinn, published a blog on WordPress called the Zoe Post. In this blog, he alleged that Quinn cheated on him with several members of the gaming industry, one of whom was a writer for Kotaku. This post created substantial uproar in the gaming community. Some took the post as license to attack Quinn, while many others were incensed by the relationship and potential conflicts of interest it presented in Grayson's reporting. Overwhelmingly, the gaming press responded to this in a markedly different fashion from previous similar allegations and began a campaign of censorship on nearly every game-related website. The user-driven sites like Reddit and NeoGAF to contributor-driven sites like Kotaku. Any discussion of the topic or even topics almost completely unrelated was quenched immediately and without question. Even a handful of 4chan moderators came into play and tried to silence the discussion. Okay, I'm going to talk on my behalf. I can understand a bit of silencing censorship over this controversy due to the fact that if you're going to just spew bile, not even have a proper adult conversation about this, a debate that's practical and constructive, it doesn't need to be there. Get rid of it. That's something that they did a lot of. It's censoring bile, stuff that doesn't need to be out, and attacks and stuff like that. I can understand that. There were some that probably were just blacklisted words, like uh, Gamergate was probably a blacklisted word because they couldn't keep up with it. I can understand that. It's something that causes your servers lag and you can't keep your server up at the same price and things like that. I can understand that. Just reply to it properly. Don't just leave everyone in the dark. Announce something on it. Say, hey, I don't want to talk about Gamergate because, well, it's a controversy that right now isn't properly covered. Things like that. So that's simple. Let's continue. This nearly universal response and behavior pattern widely outside the bounds of the sites in question made many people suspicious of collisions or conspiracy, and questions began to be asked, such as why it was considered acceptable for a professional journalist to have sex with the subject, or why there were a nebulous network of financial support between developers and journalists through the use of websites like Patreon, or even simply if ethical standards existing in the gaming journalism industry. Major industry figures confirmed that these issues existed and insisted that they were not a problem. On August 28th to 29th, 11 gaming news sites, including Gamasutra, Daily Dot, Kotaku, Polygon, and several others, published articles declaring some variations of gamers are dead, and that any and all calls for better journalism were made only as a cover for neck-bearded misogynists to harass women. This licensed a large portion of their audience and even reached well-known actor Adam Baldwin, who coined the hashtag Gamergate upon his getting involved, which the movement has since adopted as its moniker. In the ensuing weeks, gaming and the entrenched gaming press have been at odds over the issues of honest and ethical reporting laid out against claims of anonymous harassment. What can you do? This is what they want you to do. If this cause seems worth supporting, the reader, they basically just want you to help them out. Okay. Now, that was the pro Gamergate side. Let's actually see what people think that it's not. Uh, let's see what TC Sodic has to offer in criticism over that. If you're a person who cares about video games and also happens to care about other people, you should denounce Gamergate. You might have heard that movement about ethics and video game journalism, but in practice it's a month-long campaign of harassment against women and progressive voices that just the latest in a long history of online abuse amplified by reactionary right-wing media trolls. Gamergate is distinguished, like so many other things ending in gate, or more recently, Ghazi, by its aggressive and desperate tone. Its supporters have widely attempted to scare anyone, but especially women who have asked the same critical questions about the video game industry that are routinely posed in other communities. Critics of video games and Gamergate itself have been branded as liars, sluts, and co-conspirators. The militants of Gamergate claim that they are a vanguard of ethical games journalism. In order to justify their harassment, they have established no credibility as such, but maintain a titillating promise to expose corrupt game journalists with meme stock puppet trolls and kind of internet TikTok that caught the wrong Boston bomber. It would be easy to mistake the angry members of Gamergate as mere fanboys, people who have incorporated objects of consumer culture so deeply in their personal identity that an inconvenient or embarrassing revelation about a product that they like is an attack on the self, or as Matthew Burns described it, consumer teens, who mistake the ritual of consumption for self-importance. But they are not just fanboys, as Peter Phrase wrote in Jacobin. There's a reactionary right-wing flavor to all Gamergate desperate yelling. Liz Ryson was the first to thoroughly document this extremism. Some gamers would like it both ways. They want everyone to take their medium seriously, but they don't want anyone to challenge their political assumptions or call into question the way gamers treat people who don't look and think like them. Phrase wrote, they hate and fear world where games are truly made by and for everyone. Me, I'd love everyone to make games. I'd love making games myself, and I love people that make good games. I don't want a poor excuse for a game to be allowed, one that rips people off and things like that. I don't want to turn this into a rant myself. What gives Gamergate power and momentum is its extremist, conservative obstinacy. Obstinacy. It is a reactionary movement against progressive voices that hoodwinks typically apolitical game players by convincing them of some harm that doesn't actually exist, like they are losing some right to free speech or their hobby is being killed by an anti-gamer conspiracy. Once you've insinuated something like that, whether or not it's true, it's easy to get a lot of people on your side. A closely related project is to get people hyped up about people stealing votes to justify racially and politically biased ID laws, even though voter fraud in the United States is a mythical boogeyman. Actually, there's a lot of voter fraud. They've proved it. You can't call it a myth if they've proven it. Gamergate patriot, patriot, patriarchal sway has allowed charlatans like Mila Yiannopoulos to become one of its prominent champions. Yiannopoulos, who routinely writes misogynist, transphobic, and other bigoted rants for Braveheart, would never been exalted in any form lacking any undercurrent or reactionary right-wing sympathies. Even the American Enterprise has chimed in, arguing that the issue of sexism and misogyny in video games is a fake issue created by feminist tech writers and concernocrats. AEI's involvement has been led by Christina Hoff Sommers. Okay, that's Sommers in the first place. Hey, didn't get her name right. Who cares very little about video games, but an awful lot about alleged war on men, which ranks somewhere near the war on Christmas on the list of things adults ought to take seriously. Nevertheless, she's been anointed by Gamergate fanatics as a truth teller for her views on male persecution. Ditto other, ditto other reactionaries like YouTube personalities Thunderfoot, I don't know him, sorry, who has published videos such as do hot girls have all the advantages and why feminism poisons everything? Well, hot girls do all the advantages. I'm pretty sure that if a hot girl, well, actually, I suppose it would be more what do I think I can get out of them, more than anything. Why feminism poisons everything. Feminism really doesn't poison things. Mad feminist poisons things. The conspiracy theory at the core of Gamergate even has parallels to other attacks on liberal journalists. Breitbart wrote how the secret mailing list of gaming journalism elite has been exposed the same way Andrew Breitbart tried years ago to nail an allegedly liberal journalism cable, including writers like Ezra Klein and Dave Weigel. There was no real scandal with journalists, the same way there is no real scandal with the game journalist list, unless you believe that journalists merely speaking to one another constitutes some kind of shadowy media illuminati. I'm gonna stop a second because I'm reading this and I see spelling errors and things like that. And the small little uh, grammar Nazi in me wants to correct these. And it makes me mad because this is a pretty big site that has proofreaders and everything like that that should have caught some of these. Oh well, let's continue. The enemy of the Gamergate supporter is the so-called social justice warrior, which is a pejorative commonly used to describe basically anyone who feels empathy, a trait that sickens narcissists who believe that listening to another human being and taking their feelings seriously is a form of defeat. It's difficult to read any thread on Gamergate without finding its supporters accosting their enemies with accusations of SJW loyalism, even though it's essentially an insult in the form of "look at you, caring about other people." Manipulative identity politics ripped straight from the handbook of conservative sophisticity are also at play. Under the Not Your Shield banner, people who say they have vulnerable identities rallied around the Gamergate cause to counter the narrative that all gamers are angry white men, something nobody is saying, by the way, and prove that gamers in the movement are suitably diverse. But this hashtag campaign has started as just another disingenuous 4chan astroturfing operation designed to make Gamergate critics look like hypocrites, essentially by saying, look at all these women and queer people and black people, they can't be racist or misogynist. Well, women can be misogynist in a way, and sorry, bring my own views into this. Gamergate supporters, like the reactionary right wing in general, have attempted to co-opt the vulnerability of those they seek to marginalize, and simultaneously maintaining the illusion that they are the ones being harassed. It's the same tone deaf logic that begets and racist used to when the structural power enforcing the traditional values erodes and is eventually conquered. Stop saying mean things about us because we believe gay marriage should be prohibited by the state. Stop silencing us. Okay? In short, Gamergate is a boggling witch hunt that continues to raise more questions than it answers because it didn't have any useful questions to ask in the first place. Even Gamergate's founding claim that gaming journalism is corrupt is opportunistic bull from misogynists who decided to shame a woman for allegedly sleeping around because they didn't like her video game and wanted to punish her for slut shaming, gaslighting, intimidation. These are all part of the Gamergate's Milton's toolkit. Um, he doesn't even know what this is about. It wasn't because they didn't like her video game, it's because she her, she broke up with her boyfriend and he was a jerk and decided to lie a lot. That's what started this. That's the Kickstarter. Everybody just got behind all that. Gamergate's tactics, while louder and more sustained than any other campaigns of online harassment, are unique, and they're not really about video games like Phrase wrote. This isn't a problem with gamer culture, it's a problem with our entire culture. It's the lads use the same tradecraft as their spiritual troll king Weave, who exemplified internet abuse in 2007 with his malicious campaign against Kathy Sierra. Weave is a prototypical angry young man whose development has been arrested by hatred for women and other scapegoats for his recursive misery. Using some of the same methods seen from Gamergate militants, we forced Sion offline more than once, and the effects of his campaign have rippled For years, just yesterday's here, abandoning Twitter, leaving behind a sad, missive, a particularly robust troll-crafted hot button meme. Today is that some women on how to destroy video games here wrote, life for women in tech today is often better than the less visible they are. Sadly, most women online may be better the less visible they are, as long as they're, as you've heard, but a lot of people or a bunch of guys happen to think you're attractive. You could be easily made a target by people who are willing to harass and hurt you and then remind you that it was all your fault. If you didn't want your nude photos leaked, you shouldn't have taken them. You should use iCloud. If I were you, I would have leaked them myself to get ahead of it. You had it coming. I can understand that if you didn't want them being leaked, you shouldn't have uploaded them online or you shouldn't have taken them in the first place. But you have a sense of privacy. You're not supposed to be like, hey, I have this online. Of course, it's going to be hacked and it's going to be exploited and it's going to be going everywhere. No, you have a sense of privacy online, even if it's not there. Although there's ways to prevent this. One, don't put them online. Never put them online. You have a computer and you have a phone, and at minimum, I have a $30 phone that I got because it works for cheap. Um, that can hold 2 gigabytes worth of data. I don't have to upload images. I can put them on my computer or I can just keep them on my phone. It's not going to affect me at all. If you don't want them online, don't put them online. That's all I'm saying. Second, it's online. It's there for all to see. As long as they're willing to work for it. Sometimes abuse doesn't even require any pretense. Zelda Williams, daughter of Robin Williams, endured vicious harassment on Twitter for no discernible reason other than the fact that her dad just died and she was vulnerable. Women still aren't safe on the internet, and Gamergate is part of the problem. I love Robin Williams. I would have gave her a hug. Give her a hug. If someone loses a family member, I don't care if they were the worst person in the world. Give them a hug, because they deserve that. That much is what they deserve. A hug, and I am sorry. And if people that harassed her see this video, and they don't feel bad that they harassed someone because someone died, then they are just jerks to go ahead and downvote it. I'll just know how many of you out there are so sorry that you are a jerk and harass people for no reason. You're a troll. Trolls aren't supposed to come above the bridge. After all, the village people usually kill the troll when they see it above the bridge. Adding insult to injury, the places we might hope would stand up to this kind of abuse often stand and watch with their hands in their pockets, unwilling to challenge abusive people who provide them with revenue. Reddit, for instance, denounced the recent celebrity news leak but was happy to profit from it. Gamers do this for their industry benefactors and are rewarded with cultural dominance in big budget video games. Here's an example by Beast of Discord. So if you're part of GamerGate and anti-harassment, know that saying, hey, don't harass isn't working, hasn't worked, and never will. Yeah, true. It will not work. And the last little bit of this article, let's continue. GamerGate is now a self-sustaining machine because it is fueled by reactionary rage and deception. existing now only to defend itself against criticism of gamers. It's not really accurate to call Gamergate militant gamers because, as Alexander rightly observed, gamer is basically a meaningless term that could describe basically any modern consumer. The problem with Gamergate's gamers is that video games no longer exist purely to sate the gaze of gallivanting young men eager to defend their sacrosanct right to be virtual prostitutes that as if they were righteous neck stabbing defenders of Alamo. Gamer isn't just a demographic label what that most people increasingly prefer not to use. Gamers are over, that's why they're so mad. Who killed prostitutes in GTA? I killed all the drug dealers. They had a lot more money. That's true. I would stop and shoot each and every one in GTA San Andreas because, well, I got a lot of money and it made me feel good. I was getting rid of bad people. I wasn't getting rid of a prostitute that's probably just trying to survive and be able to continue a life. No, I was getting rid of someone that had all that money and still kept going because of greed. That made me feel good in a way. I felt bad that I was killing someone. I didn't feel bad that I was killing someone that killed others. But that's just me. The internet and video games are incredible because they can allow everyone to participate and everyone to feel safe. Gamers are dead because we're all gamers now. Let's protect each other. I agree with that. Let's all protect each other. But if you say gamers are dead and we're all gamers now, doesn't that mean we're all dead? No, I like to keep gamers alive because if we're all gamers and we protect each other and we love each other, that means gamers ascended, not died. Well, that's just me. And he posted an update. References to right-wing plotters or messages I made throughout this article were overboard. These references have been amended to reflect that I am talking about viewpoints commonly exposed by the reactionary right. The way he meant this is right-wing is on behalf of Gamerscape, but not the half that likes that is good. And left wing is the ones that are on behalf of Gamersgate, but see it as pure and want the good side of it. That's how he meant this article to be, at least from the left wing and right wing perspective. There's also a left wing and right wing of Stop Gamersgate. The right wing, they want to stop Gamersgate because it is poisoning the gamer community, uh, and they don't see the good side of it. And the left wing likes it because don't want it because uh, it's poisoning the gaming community, and they only see the bad side of it. I guess would be the easiest way to explain that. Now I've watched and seen all three uh, sides of this thing. And Gamersgate, I suppose the intention is good, but so is the intention to go into war. You always have a good intention to go to war, whether it's to stop someone from doing something bad, or to protect someone, or to save someone, but it's still war. You're not protecting people, you're killing people in the name of protecting, in the name of saving, in the name of keeping someone safe. There's no way that war is good. There's no way that Gamersgate is good unless you change the meaning behind it. If you change it to be, I want equality in all aspects of our culture. me, I truly do like equality in all aspects of our culture, but there are some that I don't think should have the same right, like criminals that do certain things. I don't think they should have the same right as me. They certainly don't deserve to have a gun, and they don't deserve to be able to avoid taxes and stuff like that because they're poor or they're not able to do things. There are parts of our society that probably hate me because I do games and things like that for a career. I don't have a job like a normal means job. I can understand that. I mean, I love doing this. Making money is just a benefit. It's not necessarily a career right now because I'm not making enough money to sustain myself, but it's better than nothing. It allows me to continue to do it, and that's enough for me. But I see the both sides of Gamersgate, and I hope that reading both sides of two at least prominent people on each side of it allows you to decide what's good and what's bad about both sides. Um, and I suppose I will leave this off here. Thank you very much for watching. I finally went over 1 hour on one of them. But I am glad I did this because it allows you to at least hear it. You probably put it in the background because it was basically me just scrolling down for the entire video. Um, but I hope you understand why I did this because I wanted you to see both sides, not just one side because of what you live on. I know my voice and my reading skill wasn't high enough. I wasn't able to do it perfectly, but it's hard to do 2 hours of speaking without losing your voice a little bit or your voice changing to um, get it a little bit easier to read. You probably heard a different tone in my voice, but it wasn't me just editing. It was me changing my voice to be able to keep speaking without losing my voice. So I'm going to leave this off here. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you learned something from this, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.